Hi everybody, thanks for stopping by to check out our latest video. In this episode we're going to be discussing how we solved a major difficulty aboard Emerald Steel just 2 months before a long ocean passage. And before we get started, as usual, we'd like to thank all of you for your comments, your feedback on our last episode, your thumbs up, and your support.
Just before a departure on a long ocean passage, we'll always go through the Emerald Steel to examine things, make sure everything is in the working order. So one of those things is we haul out the boat to apply a bottom pane, check all the through holes and so forth. And then Susan go up and check all the rigging. And this time when I pull Susan up the mast, she discovered and we had some dry rot on the mast.
Bad news.
So it was a major difficulties because it's been already February and we wanted to leave in April due to hurricane season starting on the Mexican coast going south. So we didn't have much time to waste it, and if we were not ready by then, we would have to postpone our cruising for another year.
We didn't want to do that.
Which would be very, very disappointing. So first thing we've done is we drove our car to a national city, which is right next town to San Diego, to the same place where we purchased our original mast over 25 years ago, and hoped to be able to buy a new mast. But when we got there, we were very disappointed because we found out that the company was not any longer in business.
Yeah.
So we had a big dilemma because of have a wooden mast built. We found out it would be way over $10,000, which we could not really afford it. So I contacted several different places up in Washington, Oregon, asked if they would be able to sell me a nice pole and a ship down to San Diego. But the truth was this year, that if I had ordered 100 or 200 poles, they could ship it next day. But just a one, nobody was going to play with it. So we were kind of really disappointed because we spent about a week looking for it. And in the end, I said to Susan, I said, you know what, why don't I just build our own mast? Where Susan told me, but where are we going to build it? We have no place to build it. I said, you know what, we will be building on the boat.
And that's what he told me. He's crazy. Again.
As we rowed the dinghy to the shore, I stopped and talking to our neighbor who was a professional carpenter, and I told him, you know, Art, I think I'm just going to build my own mast here on the boat. I don't see any reason why I should not do it. He looked at me and he says, I can see few reasons why you cannot do it. So in the end, I decided we will be building our mast on a boat on top of our cabin. And naturally, everybody who heard about it, they told me we were crazy. That cannot be done. For that kind of job, you have to have a special shop with special table and so on and so forth. The truth is that I'm a contractor. I built several houses and room additions. I know how to use a hammer and a skill saw, but I never built a mast. So it was not something I've done it in the past and had any experience. So first thing we had to do is decide what we're going to do about our old mast. We went to the boatyard where we pay $150 for a crane to lift our mast. And because nobody was interested to take our mess off our hands, we decided to put her down on top of our cabin. We strapped her down and we came back to the mooring. Next thing was what we're going to do with it. So after a little thinking, I decided to borrow a chainsaw from a friend of mine and cut the mast down to about 3-foot pieces and then load slowly on a dinghy, bring to the shore, turn the back of my pickup truck, and we took into the forest where the mast originally came from. So once the decision was made to build our own mast, naturally we had to look for buying a wood, which we decided in the end to order from Home Depot. We ordered Douglas fir, kiln dry, choice lumber #1, and the problem was now how we going to bring it into our boat. We looked in San Diego and we were lucky to find one trailer which we were able to pull behind our pickup, and with a few feet overhanging on the back and the front, we were able to carry 24-foot pieces of lumber. So there was several difficulties, like for example, where we gonna drop the lumber off, how we gonna bring it to the boat, and so on.
Remember, we're not at a dock, we're on a mooring, so.
Yeah. So we decided to deliver lumber next to a public launch ramp where people are launching their boats, and we was hoping like hell that the harbor police doesn't gonna stop by and ask us what we're doing there. But luckily nobody came by.
We made it quick.
We brought our boat to a dock, load up the lumber, and went anchor in Glorieta Bay to start a project.
Yeah.
Now in the night we covered boards with the plastic, so in case it started raining, we didn't want that lumber to get wet because it was a nice finished dry lumber.
We also had a worry that when our boat would rock, everything wouldn't just fall off the cabin top onto the deck, so everything had to be tied down really well also.
So first thing we had to do is to scarf one side of each plank. So this way you could glue two pieces together to make a long one 40-foot piece. Once the scarfing was done and glued, we had to set up the wood so that was perfectly straight. And the way we accomplish is by putting one nail on each end and running a string and then a brace underneath it accordingly to make one board perfectly straight. And then Susan would take a sander and she would sand both sides of the board. And after that was done, we would wipe it with acetone to take all the dirt, dust, and oils from the board off. Once that was done, we used the West system glue. We made a batch, and Susan applied both sides of the board, which is going to be glued. Once that was done, we placed them on top of each others, and now we had to clamp them. Now for that kind of job, you needed about, I would say, 50-60 clamps, and clamps are very expensive. In our case, after the job is done, we would have no use for them. So instead of spending the money for clamps, I went and bought a 1/4-inch old thread, and with the pieces of wood and the old thread and the nuts and the washers, we made our own clamps, as you can see here on the picture. So we saved lots of money because the total cost was no more than $20. Once the two boards were glued together, we waited overnight till glue went off, and then we continued till all the laminates were glued together. So the next thing, I took a skill saw, and with the skill saw we cut octagonal. So instead of square, we end up with 8 sides. Now once that part was done, we took a electric planer and we planed all the corners off to about the best round as possibly we could done it. After finish with a power planer, we use a grinder with a sanding disc to make job much faster, and we made the mast pretty much round. And once that was done, Susan again with a electric sander finished the final sanding.
He made it sound actually pretty easy and quick, but we ended up with a lot of sawdust and wood shavings. Every day we had at least one garbage bag full of stuff to take to shore.
And after that was done, finally I installed the fittings. Susan applied 3 coats of
linseed oil and varnish mixture. Yeah.
Yes, and to protect the wood. And then
we painted the ends too. Both ends are painted. So
once that thing was done, we took the boat back to the boat yard, and for $150 again they lift the mast with a crane. We step it in, install the rigging, and the job was done. All job took us to do was 3 weeks. About price was about $870 total cost for lumber and a glue. So we saved a lot of money, and we were not delayed for our voyage.
Departure. And on top of that, the mast turned out really nice, better than our old mast. It was really nice and straight. So
we were very happy because the new mast was about 500 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
Because our old mast pole was a 12-inch in diameter, where a new one was only 9.5-inch, more size for our boat.
Yeah.
So it was and also lesser chance of rotting because of the laminates. So once the dry rats reach the glue, it will stop. So overall it's much better and probably also stronger. And now, after about 8 years, we can say that our mast works very, very well. We don't have any problems with that, and it's as good as the day we have put her up.
So in this video we showed you that no amount of difficulties or lack of funds should prevent you from accomplishing your dream if you are determined. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.